No respect for the uniform? Your reaction to that quote from James Worthy?
That's like a Magic Johnson tweet. That's like a Captain Obvious Magic Johnson tweet in the way of, hey man, you can't be doing this on a night where we are honoring one of our franchise legends. We are all gathered at center court to honor Pat Riley, and you besmirch the uniform. And when you look at the Lakers, and going back to what Monica said, defensively, they don't have an identity. With LeBron, Luka, and Austin Reeves, they are all food on defense. Food, I tell you. I could get around Luka Doncic at this point in my life, and I don't even know if I can go right anymore.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Right. That's a problem for the Lakers at this point. I'm a lefty, Monica. I'm a lefty. I'm a lefty. I'm a lefty.
Okay.
I'm a lefty. I'm a lefty. No, but
Michael Redd three-point shooter. That's what he looks like.
Nick Van Exel. That's what Nick Van Exel.
Nine.
No,
that's it.
but I think defensively, this is a problem when you have a top tier LeBron making a lot of money, Luka making a lot of money. You got to pay Austin Reeves. They don't have the resources to go and get defensive players. They're going to have to hit the reset button after this season, and like all likelihood, without LeBron James, to figure out what you can build around Luka Doncic.
Monica, we're in this media game. Everyone has a comment that goes online. The players see it. They don't see it. We know some players live on their phone. James Worthy, though, that is a legend, saying that they did the jersey wrong. Does that resonate in that Lakers locker room? Do you think that makes waves?
I don't think it makes waves, because the quiet part out loud, Schrager, is that sentiment has kind of been looming around this group all season, especially when you talk about the effort that is or is not there, I should say, on the defensive side of the basketball. Now, this one is a little bit louder because of who James Worthy is and because it was a marquee night versus a longtime rival. But the idea that these guys haven't necessarily had what it takes to honor that jersey, I don't think that that's new, unfortunately, this season.
We were told all season, once they get Reeves, Luka, and LeBron on the court, watch out. Well, the results have not been great. Coming up, we're going back to the NFL. Because we're going to that's it. We got to get there, though. Next time, we're going.
We're going?
Two of us, we're going this. We have an awesome show for you up ahead, and we begin with the game of the night. Vince Goodwill's here with me in studio. And in Detroit was this one. Season San Antonio is an NBA best, 9-2 against the top 6 teams in the NBA. How would they do against Detroit on the road? Here's a steal from Cade Cunningham early on. Pistons showing that they are in control. They would take an early lead on this one, go up by 6. 4.5 minutes left in the second quarter. Spurs are up 2. Watch this. Corner, Devin Vassell, takes it to the hoop, bucket. Then, you see here, Vassell again, three-pointer, good. This is what is interesting about San Antonio. It's not just a one-man show. You never know who is going to be their guy, and there's always this guy on defense. What a block by Wemby. Picks it up, they move it around. Kevin Castle from 3, good. Look at the block from Wemby. That is above the box on the backboard, and it is not a goaltend. Freakish stuff out of Wembanyama. And then he can also do this. For 3, it's good. Spurs take the lead. Fourth quarter, they're up 10. Oh, Wemby. That's Danis Jenkins trying to go for the slam, and Wemby says, not today. 2 passes. Vassell in the corner, good. Vassell would have 28 points in this one. Still a game, though. 10-point game. Cade to the hoop. Wemby, no. Wemby with the block. Those are 2 former #1 overall picks, and Wemby tells Cade, not tonight. And then the finishing touch here. Castle to Wemby. Alley-oop is good. They go on the road, and the young San Antonio Spurs improve to 41-16. Take a look here. 9-2 against the league's best 6 teams in the NBA, and they're undefeated against the Eastern Conference's Pistons, Celtics, and Knicks. And oh yeah, they're 4-1 against OKC. We bring in Monica McNutt. Monica, what did Wemby and the Spurs prove in last night's destruction of the Pistons in Detroit?
I don't know. Do they prove more that this team is a real in terms of being a contender? I think we all sort of knew that, and we're stepping into that. I thought the way that they were able to make the Detroit Pistons look so uncomfortable and frankly expose the thing that has been labeled as their weakness in terms of their inconsistent, subpar three-point shooting. The Pistons could not get Wemby away from the rim, and that is ultimately part of what their demise was, not to mention that the Spurs can throw multiple terrific on-ball and defenders at you in terms of the guards that they have to bother Cade Cunningham. I mean, I thought this was a really impressive display on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, and Vince, we look at it, the matchup, it just seemed like everything was in the Spurs' favor yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you can hold Cade Cunningham, one of the league's best scorers, to 5 of 26, and the Pistons don't have secondary scoring, you're going to shut down that offense. And I think when you looked at Detroit, like Monica said, secondary offense, not having shooting, but they were played into that by San Antonio's defense. You got to give them a lot of credit. There's not many teams that have the personnel that the Spurs have where you can funnel everything to Vic and you can funnel everything because you have the guards that can defend up and down their position. They have 3 or 4 guys that are point guard size, but they can play up to playing small forward. So the way the team has been constructed has been wonderfully and masterfully made. Even though this is very early in their development, they're 2 years ahead of schedule. That is freaky for me to consider.
I'm going to go back to you on this one because they got Harrison Barnes. We know he's got championship pedigree. And we know De'Aaron Fox has been to the playoffs and took Steph to 7 games. But Monica, does it feel too soon, or is it time to crown these guys and say, no, they can go into OKC and they could be the team out of the West this year?
Schrager, this makes me itch.
I know.
Okay, here's the thing. If I had to lay out a formula on how a team that necessarily doesn't have the experience historically was going to buck the trend, I would add Victor Wembanyama as my first piece, right? And so I think in the nature of a series, there's a couple of things that I'm watching down the stretch. Unfortunately, Victor Wembanyama has not had the best history when it comes to durability. This year has been much better. Hopefully that holds. And then in the nature of a series, in terms of the physicality, the adjustments that come, the shooting that sort of fluctuates as you get deeper into postseason runs, what does that look like? But to our point, if Victor's your centerpiece in terms of your potential defensive player of the year, and you've still got guys on the perimeter that are willing to defend, you got to really sit and think about the power of defense. As much as we love offense in the league, when you look at what OKC has been able to do, even what Boston did, defense still matters, particularly into the postseason. And this Spurs team, what they can do on that side of the ball is legit.
Yeah, I want you to take a look at this full screen here. That's TV talk for a graphic. Take a look at this. Spurs are in the midst of their annual rodeo road trip. There's always a rodeo in San Antonio every year, and when they do that, they got to leave for a month. Their last 5 games have been played away from home, and they are 5-0 in those games, and they win them by an average of 19 points per game. Their next 4 games are on the road. They got the Nets on Thursday. They got the Knicks on Sunday. They got the Sixers after that. So, Vince, when you see these numbers, I mean, this is all on the road they're doing this. That's real deal stuff.
Yeah, that's why I say it's freaky for me to consider, because the history of the NBA tells us you have to lose and lose big before you win. You have to lose at a heartbreaking level. This team hasn't even made the playoffs yet, Schrager. That's why it gives you pause. But the way that they play defense, when you look at the way that they are growing when they're on this rodeo trip, you're not just winning. You are blowing teams out. I cannot wait to see Big Vic at Madison Square Garden. The last time it was Christmas. He gave them 40. They lost, right? Didn't matter. This is a new year. And the one thing that Monica said about the playoff rigor, this is the one thing about Victor. Victor's doing all of this in 29 minutes a game. In the playoffs, that number has to go to 35, 36. How will his body hold up with the added pressure, with the added physicality? Early on, he seemed to struggle when the Pistons put a body on him. I wonder if that has to be the formula, but that's the only way you can stop this guy. And when you talk about the playoffs, it's a totally different sport, Peter. Players don't understand that until they get there.
The only thing we've seen, y'all, that we can liken to the playoffs at this point was the way things went down in Vegas for the Emirates Cup, right?
Yep.
And I loved listening to the Spurs going into that matchup with the Knicks. They understood that they needed to absorb the energy and the pomp and circumstance and the big game nature. But they're just untested, and obviously we know how the Emirates Cup played out. So I'm excited for this game coming up at the Garden as well. I'm with you, Vinny.
I don't know if it's too early to promote it. 1 o'clock on Sunday, Knicks, Wemby at the Garden. I'm going to be there too. I already got my tickets. I'll be going. I cannot wait for that one, and we're going to get back to you guys in just a little bit. We got to go back to the NFL, though. Our next stop is Philadelphia.
LeBron about this yesterday. The Celtics sort of, gave the Lakers a smackdown in L.A. I do vote. And I don't even have a ballot in my head yet, but I'll put one in there now. And I probably would go Cade Cunningham 1, Jaylen Brown would be no lower than third because I got Wembanyama in somewhere in there, probably fourth for Wembanyama, and Nikola Jokic might be second. So those 4 guys would be in the mix, and Jaylen Brown could be second, third, or fourth. So I wouldn't have him as low as 6th, like apparently is the case now in some of these straw polls. So I'm with LeBron, two-way player. You've mentioned early on, kudos to you. The Celtics look great because of Jaylen Brown, and they do.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know who LeBron is listening to. I don't know what LeBron is seeing. But I don't know how you can have a ballot and not have Cade Cunningham and Jaylen Brown actually at the top of it. I mean, what are you watching? Cade Cunningham is the best player on the team with the best record in the NBA. Jaylen Brown is the best player on the most surprising team in the NBA, a team without its best player, without Jason Tatum. They're up there. They're elevated because of Jaylen Brown. I know you slurp Wembanyama all the time, but I don't believe Wembanyama is more valuable this year than Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown, he has stepped up. I mean, look, when you talk about Gilgeous-Alexander and Jokic and Luka, they are doing what they're supposed to do. We know who says that, supposed to do. This guy is exceeding expectations, Jaylen Brown. I mean, Jaylen Brown is either
No
1 or
doubt.
2 for me, and Cunningham is the other.
What, Tony? I said 1, 2, or 3, so it's not like we're in massive disagreement there. No, Jaylen Brown's having a hell of a season. And by the way, don't mention Luka. No, Luka doesn't even get. No, Luka's not first team All-NBA. I don't care about 32 points a game. The Lakers are like the 12th out of all the playoff teams, and I guess there's going to be 16 of them. The Lakers are no higher than 12. He's playing with LeBron. He's playing with Austin Reeves. No, don't want to hear it.
Enough email.
Look, if you've somehow managed to survive the psychological warfare that is supporting the Los Angeles Lakers through the 2026 season without requiring professional therapy, developing stress-induced medical conditions, or questioning every major life decision that led you to voluntarily subject yourself to this particular form of organized emotional torture, then you deserve recognition for possessing the kind of emotional fortitude typically reserved for hostage negotiators. People who voluntarily choose to watch reality television marathons during natural disasters, and individuals who maintain their sanity while working in customer service during holiday shopping seasons. Because what we witnessed this past weekend against the Boston Celtics wasn't just a basketball game gone wrong, it was a masterclass in how to transform what should have been a celebration of franchise excellence into an elaborate public humiliation that would have made medieval torture specialists study the proceedings to improve their own creative limitations and professional development. The fact that this particular brand of suffering occurred on Pat Riley Day, when the franchise was ostensibly celebrating one of the true architects of championship basketball and honoring a man whose teams were characterized by exactly the kind of toughness, preparation, and competitive fire that this current roster seems to lack whenever they encounter genuine adversity, created a level of irony so thick and impenetrable that you could have used it as building material for affordable housing, or possibly solved several engineering problems related to infrastructure development in earthquake-prone regions. Before we dive deep into this latest chapter of Lakers-induced suffering that somehow manages to combine hope and despair into a perfectly balanced cocktail of fan misery that would impress bartenders specializing in elaborate cocktail preparation, make sure to absolutely demolish that like button with the fury of someone who's watched this team find 17 different ways to lose games they should win, while simultaneously discovering new methods of creating false hope that makes recovery from disappointment exponentially more difficult than simply accepting mediocrity from the beginning. Sunday's 111-89 disaster against Boston wasn't just a loss in the traditional sense of one team scoring more points than another team within the confines of a regulated basketball contest, it was a complete systematic breakdown that exposed every fundamental weakness this Lakers team has been trying to hide behind their occasional flashes of brilliance, their individual talent advantage over most opponents, and their ability to perform well against teams that don't possess the depth, coaching, or competitive intensity required to truly test a roster's championship credentials. When you're getting out-rebounded by Peyton Pritchard, a player who weighs approximately what LeBron James carries in his gym bag, while your supposedly elite offense manages to shoot 39% from the field and 30% from three-point range despite having multiple all-star caliber players and coaching specifically designed to maximize offensive efficiency, you've officially entered territory where even the most optimistic fan starts questioning their life choices, wondering if supporting a different team might be better for their cardiovascular health, and contemplating whether this level of emotional investment in professional sports represents a wise allocation of their finite time and energy resources. The visual of watching Lakers players essentially give up during critical stretches of the game, standing around like tourists at a basketball exhibition rather than professional athletes competing for playoff positioning worth millions of dollars in potential playoff revenue and championship bonuses, created exactly the kind of optics that championship organizations spend decades trying to avoid and repair once they occur. What made this defeat exponentially more painful was the timing, because there's something particularly cruel about honoring excellence immediately before demonstrating its complete absence. Like giving a speech about the importance of punctuality while showing up 3 hours late to your own wedding, or lecturing about financial responsibility immediately after declaring bankruptcy due to poor investment decisions in cryptocurrency and commemorative plate collections. The way this Lakers team managed to make the Celtics look like the 1986 championship squad despite Boston missing several key players, and dealing with their own injury concerns suggests fundamental issues that go far beyond simple execution problems or temporary shooting slumps that every team experiences throughout the course of a long season. I believe this kind of mental fragility and inability to maintain competitive intensity for 48 minutes represents the biggest obstacle standing between this roster and any legitimate championship aspirations, because teams that fold under pressure during regular season games against quality opponents rarely find the additional gear necessary to succeed during playoff basketball, where every possession matters exponentially more, and opponents have multiple days between games to identify and exploit any weaknesses they observe. The officiating situation that has plagued this team throughout the season, like a persistent illness that refuses to respond to traditional treatment methods, reached another significant boiling point during the Celtics game, with J.J. Redick taking the unprecedented step of contacting Monty McCutchen, the NBA's Senior Vice President of Referee Development and Training, to discuss what he perceived as missed calls and inconsistent enforcement that significantly impacted the game's flow, outcome, and his team's ability to execute their prepared strategy within the framework of fairly officiated basketball competition. The specific incident involving an uncalled goaltending violation, where a Boston player allegedly put his arm through the rim to effect a shot attempt without any whistle or acknowledgement from the officiating crew, despite the action occurring in clear view of multiple referees, became symbolic of the Lakers' ongoing frustration with inconsistent officiating that seems to disproportionately affect their ability to maintain focus, execute their game plan, and compete with the kind of emotional equilibrium that championship teams require during crucial moments. What's particularly troubling about this recurring pattern of officiating complaints is how these perceived injustices cause multiple Lakers players, including Luka Doncic, Austin Reeves, Marcus Smart, and even LeBron James, to spend valuable emotional and physical energy complaining to referees, arguing with officials, and seeking validation for their grievances, instead of channeling that same energy into getting back on defense, communicating with teammates, and focusing on the controllable aspects of basketball that determine game outcomes, regardless of officiating quality. This pattern leads to easy transition opportunities for opponents who are more than happy to capitalize on distracted defenders who are looking at referees instead of tracking their assigned offensive players. And it creates exactly the kind of undisciplined basketball that championship teams avoid because they understand that external factors will always exist, and elite organizations find ways to overcome adversity rather than allowing it to derail their performance and competitive focus. I believe this represents a fundamental maturity issue that extends beyond individual players to encompass the team's overall approach to handling adversity. Because championship teams throughout NBA history have been characterized by their ability to maintain focus and execution regardless of officiating, opponent tactics, or other external factors that could serve as convenient excuses for poor performance. The fact that this Lakers team continues to allow officiating frustrations to impact their performance suggests either a lack of mental preparation from the coaching staff or an inability among veteran players to provide the kind of leadership that keeps younger teammates focused on what matters most during competitive basketball games. The broader pattern of struggles against quality opposition has become impossible to ignore for anyone conducting honest analysis of this team's capabilities and limitations, with the Lakers sporting a genuinely dismal 4-11 record against teams with winning percentages above 60%, and 10 of those 11 losses coming by double digits, which suggests this isn't just bad luck, isolated incidents, or the kind of variance that every team experiences over the course of a long season, but rather a fundamental inability to match the intensity, preparation, and execution level required to compete with championship-caliber organizations that bring their best effort, regardless of opponent, venue, or circumstances. This concerning trend indicates that when the Lakers face teams with similar or superior talent levels, superior coaching, or better organizational preparation, they consistently fail to find the extra gear necessary to elevate their performance, whether that's due to mental preparation deficits, tactical inflexibility, or simply not possessing the depth, versatility, and two-way excellence needed to match up with elite competition throughout a full 48-minute contest, where every possession carries increased importance. The fact that 3 of their 4 victories against quality opponents came during the first 2 weeks of the season, when teams are still finding their rhythm, establishing chemistry, dealing with roster adjustments, and working through tactical implementations that require time and repetition to master, makes these numbers even more damning and raises serious questions about this team's ceiling when facing legitimate playoff contenders who have had months to refine their systems, identify their optimal lineups, and develop the kind of trust and execution that allows good teams to become great teams during the most important games of the season, thinking about it objectively and without the emotional attachment that clouds judgment and prevents accurate assessment of team capabilities. This pattern suggests the Lakers might be perfectly constructed to beat mediocre teams that lack the talent or organizational infrastructure to exploit their weaknesses, while struggling against the very organizations they'll need to defeat multiple times in 7-game series in order to achieve their stated championship aspirations and justify the significant investment in talent, coaching, and organizational resources. The juxtaposition of individual excellence and collective failure was perfectly encapsulated when LeBron James reached the historic milestone of 43,000 career points during the same game where his team suffered one of their most embarrassing defeats of the season, creating a strange and somewhat surreal dynamic where personal achievement was completely overshadowed by organizational incompetence that made the accomplishment feel hollow and bittersweet, despite its genuine historical significance and the incredible longevity it represents in professional sports. LeBron becoming the first player in NBA history to reach this scoring plateau represents a testament to sustained excellence, physical maintenance, competitive drive, and professional longevity that will likely never see replicated given the physical demands of modern basketball and the increased emphasis on load management that makes playing 20-plus seasons at an elite level virtually impossible for future generations of players. Yet the timing of this achievement during such a deflating and comprehensive loss highlighted the disconnect between individual brilliance and team success that has characterized much of LeBron's later career, where personal milestones and statistical achievements occur against the backdrop of team struggles that prevent these moments from receiving the celebration and recognition they would normally deserve if they occurred during successful seasons or meaningful victories against quality opposition. The fact that LeBron managed to score 20 points in this particular game while dealing with various physical ailments, the frustration of watching teammates struggle to execute basic basketball concepts, and the added pressure of performing in front of a home crowd that expected better from their team demonstrates the kind of professional dedication and competitive fire that should inspire rather than frustrate his supporting cast and younger teammates who have the opportunity to learn from one of basketball's greatest players. I believe there's something profoundly sad and almost tragic about watching one of basketball's greatest players achieve personal milestones while his team fails to provide the competitive environment and organizational support that would make these moments truly memorable, meaningful, and worthy of the historical significance they represent in the context of NBA history and individual achievement. The fact that LeBron continues to perform at an elite level despite his age, physical limitations, and the emotional toll of carrying teams that can't consistently match his level of preparation and competitive intensity speaks to exactly the kind of character and professionalism that younger players should be studying and emulating, rather than taking for granted or allowing to become background noise in their own development process. LeBron's post-game comments about Jaylen Brown being overlooked in MVP conversations created an interesting subplot that revealed both his basketball intelligence and his remarkable ability to maintain perspective, sportsmanship, and professional respect, despite personal disappointment and the frustration that naturally comes from suffering such a comprehensive defeat against a rival organization. Particularly given Brown's previous comments about Bronny James during Summer League competition that created some tension between the two players and their respective fan bases. The fact that LeBron could set aside personal grievances, family loyalty, and the natural inclination to respond defensively to criticism of his son in order to acknowledge an opponent's excellence, while simultaneously pointing out media blind spots and narrative inconsistencies in award voting, demonstrates the kind of maturity, emotional intelligence, and basketball IQ that younger players should be learning from rather than dismissing as political correctness or media manipulation. Brown's 32-point performance against the Lakers served as a tangible reminder that individual rivalries, past comments, and media-created storylines become completely irrelevant when players are competing at the highest level and focusing on the task of winning basketball games, rather than settling personal scores or proving points about previous disagreements. LeBron's willingness to praise an opponent who had previously criticized his son shows exactly the kind of professional approach that separates elite competitors who understand the bigger picture from players who allow emotions, personal grievances, and external noise to cloud their judgment and impact their performance during crucial moments when focus and execution matter most. Thinking about this situation more deeply and considering the strategic implications beyond surface-level sportsmanship, LeBron's comments might have been calculated rather than purely magnanimous, as elevating Brown's MVP candidacy could indirectly benefit the Lakers by taking attention and votes away from other Western Conference players who pose more direct threats to their playoff positioning and seeding, while simultaneously demonstrating the kind of leadership and basketball intelligence that could influence how his teammates approach similar situations involving opponent respect and competitive focus. This type of strategic thinking and emotional maturity represents exactly the kind of championship-level leadership that transforms talented rosters into cohesive teams capable of sustained excellence during high-pressure situations. The chemistry development between Luka Doncic, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves remains one of the most intriguing and potentially crucial storylines surrounding this Lakers team, particularly because they've only played together in 8 or 9 games throughout the entire season due to various injuries, load management decisions, and the kind of roster availability issues that have plagued this organization throughout what was supposed to be a season of health and continuity after years of injury-related setbacks. This limited sample size means we're still essentially watching them learn each other's tendencies, preferences, and basketball instincts in real time, rather than executing a refined system they've mastered through months of practice, repetition, and the kind of trust building that allows great individual players to become transcendent teammates who can anticipate each other's movements and make split-second decisions that put their colleagues in position to succeed. Their 8-4 record, when all three are available, suggests significant potential that hasn't been fully realized due to limited opportunities to build trust, develop chemistry, and establish the kind of instinctive understanding that championship teams require during crucial moments when improvisation and basketball IQ become more important than scripted plays and predetermined offensive sets. The fact that they combined for 60 of the Lakers' 89 points against Boston, while being the only 3 players to reach double figures in scoring, demonstrates both their individual capabilities and the team's concerning lack of depth and reliable secondary scoring when role players fail to contribute consistently or when opponents focus their defensive attention on neutralizing the team's primary offensive threats. This pattern of depending almost exclusively on 3 players for offensive production creates exactly the kind of vulnerability that elite defenses exploit during playoff basketball, when teams have multiple days between games to study film, identify tendencies, and develop specific strategies designed to limit the impact of an opponent's best players while forcing role players to make plays and execute in pressure situations where their limitations become magnified. I believe the success or failure of this trio's chemistry development will ultimately determine whether the Lakers can make any meaningful playoff run, because championship teams require multiple players who can step up when their stars are struggling, facing increased defensive attention, or dealing with foul trouble that limits their minutes and impact during crucial stretches of games. The fact that this group has shown flashes of brilliance while also experiencing significant struggles suggests they possess the talent necessary to compete with elite teams but lack the repetitions and shared experience needed to maintain that level of performance consistently throughout playoff series where opponents make adjustments. Coaching becomes more detailed, and execution under pressure becomes the primary factor separating winners from teams that fall short of their championship aspirations. Jackson Hayes, suffering a right ankle injury during the Celtics game and being listed as doubtful for Tuesday's matchup against Orlando, represents another frustrating example of this team's seemingly cursed inability to maintain health and roster consistency when they need it most, particularly given Hayes' recent strong performances and his growing chemistry with the team's primary playmakers in both offensive and defensive situations. The fact that Hayes had to undergo imaging on his ankle and will likely miss multiple games when the Lakers are already thin in the front court creates additional pressure on DeAndre Ayton and other big men to handle increased minutes, responsibilities, and physical demands during a crucial stretch of the season where every game impacts playoff positioning and seeding implications that could determine their postseason fate. Hayes' injury also highlights the fragile nature of role player contributions and the devastating impact that seemingly minor setbacks can have on teams that lack sufficient depth to absorb injuries without significantly altering their rotation, strategy, or competitive capability, because while Hayes isn't a star player or primary option, his energy, athleticism, and improving basketball IQ provide exactly the kind of impact that championship teams rely on from their bench players during crucial moments when games are decided by effort, execution, and the ability to make winning plays rather than pure talent or individual brilliance. His absence forces the Lakers to either play smaller lineups that could be vulnerable against physical opponents or rely more heavily on players who haven't had sufficient opportunities to develop chemistry with the starters and understand their roles within the team's offensive and defensive systems. I believe the Lakers' medical staff, training personnel, and coaching team need to find more effective ways to manage player health, prevent minor injuries from becoming major problems, and develop contingency plans that allow the team to maintain competitive effectiveness when key role players become unavailable. Because these seemingly minor injuries consistently occur at the worst possible times and force tactical adjustments that disrupt whatever momentum or chemistry the team has managed to establish during stretches when they're playing well and building confidence through successful execution of their preferred style of play. The retrospective analysis of letting Dorian Finney-Smith leave in free agency to join the Houston Rockets becomes increasingly interesting and potentially vindicating. For Rob Pelinka, when you examine Finney-Smith's current struggles and compare them to the production the Lakers are getting from their current roster construction, particularly since Finney-Smith has played only 22 games this season, while averaging career-low numbers across most statistical categories and shooting 30% from the field in what appears to be a significant decline from the reliable, versatile contributor he was during his time with the Lakers organization. Pelinka's decision to allow Finney Smith to walk while acquiring Marcus Smart, Jake LaRavia, and DeAndre Ayton appears increasingly prescient when you consider that Finney Smith has been essentially unplayable for Houston due to various health issues, conditioning problems, and dramatically diminished performance levels that would have made him a significant liability, rather than the reliable contributor he was during his Lakers tenure when he was younger, healthier, and playing with something to prove. The fact that Finney Smith missed the first 30 games of the season due to ankle surgery and has struggled with conditioning, consistency,